You could be here for any number of marketing problems in your business. How to build or improve your website, how to make your product and service shine, how to streamline e-commerce. The list is endless. It's always there. It's like a game of whack-a-mole, right? But but what if no matter how focused and awesome you are with your head down, whacking a problem here and a problem there, what if you were missing the problem? The one most pivotal problem that when you do solve it, it starts a spark that feeds a fire of interest, of purchase, of repurchase, and word of mouth in your customer. What if we turn off road from the beaten path, and we zag while others keep zigging to get to the problem, the single most revealing thing to know about your customer, to be your singular strategy, to be your trusted guide for every customer experience of your business, at every point in your business that they touch, digitally and in person. Okay, then, let's crack this problem code together. You're going to play the role of three decision makers of actual businesses, each with their own marketing problem. Are you ready? First up, your name is Jack, and you've got a problem, Jack, which is going to be a good thing, right? Let's go. Jack is you're in the home construction business. One day your parents announce that they're going to sell their house, the home you grew up in. Kind of emotional, right? Okay, well, get over it. The thing is, they were ready to downsize, and that word downsize hit your entrepreneurial home builder brain like a lightning bolt. So you look up the market data on downsizers, predominantly baby boomers, and boom is right. It's a gazillion-dollar market, and you want in now. So you do your due dilly, focus group perspective downsizers. You listen to the things they want in a new house. What kind of flooring, lighting, appliances. You cover every nook and cranny, and you and your team create a blueprint and design and a model home, and the marketing engagement, the interest is off the charts. Like a rocket, you've nailed it. They love it. But then, in the next months that follow, that love fades. Sales are flat, non existent. You did everything right to know the market, to know your customer. What are you missing? What are you not seeing? What's your blind spot, Jack? Now you're Adam Tahani, up and coming designer in the hospitality business. You're feeling your oats and you're looking to break into the hotel market in New York City. Why not? New York. No sweat, right? All you need to do is stand out from 500 plus other hotels. So you niche down to the boutique hotel category, which is smart. But then you're competing with at least a dozen other boutique hotels who also are very cool designers. How do you out-design them? How do you outthink to outmarket them in the toughest market in the world? All right, your name is Laurie. You're in the professional photo business and you're looking to expand your customer base. Your brand's already well known in the UK and London and other big cities in Europe. And now you're pretty confident about US photographers appreciating your exceptional product that you poured so much investment, so much sweat and tears into. But there's one problem, and it's a big one. Your US competitor already owns 90% of the market. 90, 90. It's like competing against the Amazon of photo brands. So what are you going to do, Laurie? Looks like each of you have a pretty big problem. But if you're vigilant about your business and never take your customer for granted, the problem is a gift of inspiration for thinking beneath the obvious to the non obvious, so that then you rise above just doing and offering better, to giving your customers the experience of something remarkably different that makes a difference in their lives. Consider how little you really know about their universe, about them, their millions of thoughts and worries and fears and joys. And conversely, how small a role you actually play in their world, and the chance of stopping their scroll to win their attention, much less their purchase, unless you truly think different, to know what they really care about that plays bigger in their world. And hint, it can't be about you, your product, or your service. It's got to be about them, the non obvious emotional them thing that says you listen closer, you listen deeper, you feel them, you get them. So, in those first 2 to 3 seconds of your message and design entering their world, they are instantly leaning in to trust you. And your little dot is suddenly, maybe forevermore, playing bigger in their world. Let's see how you did. Let's see how Jack, Adam, and Laurie did to win the trust, to earn the respect, and to play bigger in their customers' lives. For Jack, the home builder, he found out that in spite of all of his conversations at the beginning in these focus groups, that there was something missing. And that missing thing, when he dug deeper, when he kept asking why and why and why, was, believe it or not, the dining room table. The dining room table for these customers was that non-obvious thing that they didn't even want to admit to, that prevented them from going forward for a sale. Why? The dining room table has been in their lives for generations almost, right? Their kids, their grandkids. And it's the place where family would gather for every celebration and big event in their lives. So Jack's blueprint didn't allow space enough in the dining room in this downsized layout, didn't allow space enough in the dining room for their great old dining room table with all those memories. That was it. So Jack, at the expense that it took, redesigned and reconstructed the home model so that the dining room was big enough for a dining room table of these downsizers. And guess what happened when that happened? Sales happened. And this is the thing that Jack discovered, that the business that he was in wasn't really home construction. It wasn't home building. It was being a mover of people's lives. See what happened here? He finds out that his customers really care about a dining room table, about memories, about keeping things intact that they didn't want to lose in the downsizing. And by doing that, by understanding that on a deeper, non-obvious level, he realized the business he was really in, which wasn't being a home builder, but being a mover of people's lives. And that changed the whole culture of his operation, of his sales team. And they could talk to customers in a different way as he designed in a different way. That was the lesson that Jack learned by being a really good detective. For Adam, Adam saw that, yeah, he was in a smart place by niching down in the hotel business in New York City. But again, he had all this competition from all these other boutique designers, and they were excellent. These were beautiful hotels that they were designing. So he had this really interesting design idea to have every room be black and white, monochromatic, except for a primary color burst here and there. Could be a lamp or a pillow or a certain item in the room. And by having this interesting design, he was also able to communicate to me as the strategist how he felt about this audience differently than he thought his competitors did. And that was this, that he, in niching down, was looking at his particular boutique market as creative professionals, people who came to New York for entertainment, for selling a screenplay, for selling a novel, for working in the entertainment business. There's a real conduit between Los Angeles and New York for creative people. And he could fill that hotel with that niche beneath a niche of the boutique business. Pretty smart of him. So, how was I, as the creative director, going to take this interesting niche down strategy and create marketing that would be appealing to this audience on a level that they didn't even know they needed to be interested in an ad in a website? So, here's what I did. Instead of showing any images of the hotel like everyone else would do, instead of short, pithy headlines about the luxury or the beauty or whatever of that hotel, what I thought was, well, as a creative person, what really interests me and them is story, is imagination. I don't need a bunch of images in front of me or a pithy line to come up with some ideas to start imagining a story and start creating. So my team and I thought, let's look at the design that Adam was doing, which was monochromatic rooms with primary color bursts, red, yellow, and blue. And let's give that creative person in every touch point, the website, social ads, whatever, let's give them one primary color. Let's have a big number in that color, which is the room number or whatever it is. We're not sure at first, but that's intriguing to a creative person. And now, beneath that number, that room number, is a story about that room. And the story about that room is about that one primary color. And we find out the real history of that one primary color and bring that to light, bring that to the story. The boldest of all colors, it stands for charity and martyrdom, hell and love, youth and sin, atonement. It is the color of fezzes, the apocalyptic dragon, cheap whiskey, love letters, hot flares, and boxing gloves. It is, upon sight, the cause of a 13.4% increase in the metabolic rate of a human being. It is the color of Cézanne's apples, exit signs, and old theater seats, Mata Hari's bouquet of roses, Dr. Jekyll's potion, a 1957 Chevy, Andy Warhol's nose, and it is the color of the lighted steel vase in room 36. The Time, New York. It is the color of the pencil, of Arctic poppies, Cheerios, and the dominant body in our solar system, of the robes of Buddhist monks, taxi cabs, tape measures, and rain slickers. Enigmatic, it is the blush of Eros and a hint of debauchery, of the nimbus of saints, the cheeks of penguins, of popcorn, tequila, and Mary Janes, of old paper, speed bumps, and L. Frank Baum's Brick Road, of Dick Tracy's topcoat and Susie Wong's tight silk dress on the cover of Life, and it is the color of the fresh quince in room 94. The Time, New York. It is the color of ambiguous depth, of the heavens and of the abyss at once, the tint of the marvelous and the inexplicable, of desire, distant hills and postmarks, of the spot behind a groom's ear in Morocco, the iridescent upper side of the hair streak butterfly, a Cape Cod sea in August, of magic, mist, and moonlight, of an architect's pencils and a note in music, of denim, tattoos, and the dye yielded by the seed of the avocado, of the sky over Van Gogh's cornfield, and it is the color of the Dakota Jackson sofa in room 126, The Time, New York. Any creative person is going to want to look into that. It's just the way that their minds work. So instead of the typical 2 to 3 seconds for a hotel ad being read, we were able to hold the interest of our particular market for 2 to 3 minutes reading long form hotel ads. No one had ever done that before. And no images. The images were in the audience's head, and they appreciated that more because they were the creative person. And when they read it, they smiled. And here's the kicker. We didn't even need to put hotel as a word in the ad. So we just called it The Time instead of The Time Hotel, just The Time, and gave the address and link to how they could find out more. Now think about that. The strategy then was finding out that what people really cared about, what this creative audience really cared about, was being inspired to come to the city and to work on their project, to sell their project. So by knowing that this is what they really cared about, we knew we were in the business of not being just a hotel, but to be a place that inspires. So our strategy was a place that inspires. Just like in the previous example that we gave about Jack the home builder, he came down to being a mover of people's lives. And that jump to that deeper, non-obvious place is what makes that brand, that business stand out from all the others. So the Time Hotel just was the time in our communications. They knew it was a hotel by what they read about each of those rooms. And therefore, the strategy of a place that inspires rather than just another hotel that is luxurious and does this and does that and has this service and that service. This is something that leaped deeper into their psyche, a place that inspires. Laurie at the company called Ilford, the black and white photo business that we talked about. So she was struggling with the idea of going up against the biggest name in photography at the time, Kodak. Might have heard of it. 90% of the market in the US, and how she would even get a sliver of that market to be profitable. Well, we looked at what Kodak was doing, owning 90% of the market, and we talked to photographers, professional photographers, who pretty much didn't know what else to buy. Yeah, sure, there were some others, but they mostly bought Kodak. And if you ask long enough, deep enough, past the obvious, there was kind of a disconnect between these photographers and Kodak, as much as they used it. We kept asking why to get to this kind of disagreement that they might have with the big brand that they bought. And that was this, that Kodak, in having all of these images of beautiful photography that most advertisers, especially Kodak, would give their audience, beautiful photography with the logo Kodak on it. And this photographer uses it and that photographer uses it. And look how beautiful this photograph is. This photograph of this and this photograph of that. Look how beautiful this photography is. But if you dig deeper past the obvious to the non-obvious, what this professional photographer was feeling was, well, wait a minute. You're showing me all this beautiful photography as if you are the artist, but I'm the artist. I'm the one who is the arbiter of beauty, not you really. So I don't need to see everyone else's photographs for me to relate to the tool that I'm going to use and how great that tool is. And this changed our thinking. So instead of showing any photography for the first time in the photo business, we did a campaign website that showed no photography at first. We could show it later in other pages, but no photography ostensibly, to immediately go deeper into the psyche of and the interest of what that photographer really cares about, which is not to see beautiful photography, but really cares to find people, a business that knows the philosophy of black and white, knows the introspection of black and white, knows the non-obvious, deeper feelings that this artist, this photographer has about black and white. And that helped us get to these images that are of black and white, but they aren't photographs, as you notice. And I'll read you the small copy. It was purposely small so that whenever they came upon an experience, an ad, a website, the image itself was the beautiful thing. It didn't scream out that this was an advertisement or communication. It was the beauty of this image, and the fact that it wasn't a photograph was captivating to them. And then when they read the small copy, it was very intimate. It wasn't screaming, I'm an ad, if you know what I mean. So they read this intimate copy that was smaller fine print, and it really resonated with them. And I'll read it to you now for each of these ads that were really just messages that broke through. Interactive, introspective, inseparable, Ilford. Nobody knows the philosophy of black and white like we do. Intriguing, involving, indelible, Ilford. Nobody's wilder about black and white than we are. Inventive, irrepressible, illuminating, Ilford. Nobody sees more into black and white than we do. And so Ilford was able to capture 3% market share, from 0 to 3% market share within the year that we launched Ilford, and it grew from there. And that is a pretty wild story that's true and really worked for Ilford Photo. Just as for Adam Tahani, what we did strategically to go past the obvious, the non-obvious, worked for the Time Hotel. And what worked for Jack, the home builder, who found that his real business was mover of people's lives. I didn't work on Jack, the home builder, and I used Jack as a name for this story. That isn't his actual name. But if you want to look at the real story, it is a Harvard Business Review story that has been documented. And I'll give you the link to that in this presentation in a minute or so. You'll see it on your screen so you can check it out. So if we recap, in every case, we were going through a process. You might call it a process pyramid. So if you look at it as a triangle, a pyramid, the process pyramid starts with the foundation at the bottom, which is the problem, as we've discussed. And getting to that problem reveals what they really care about. So that's number one. A lot of people might call that the research and customer insight. Let's simplify it and let's get to the bottom of it, which is the problem. All right, now if you go up from there and you build on that, you will develop the strategy, in a sense, in a real sense, articulate the strategy, because you only want one strategy in your whole business. Your strategy, your brand strategy is your business. You ought not have multiple strategies in different functions and departments. There's one strategy only, and everything else is a plan off of that strategy, guided by that strategy. So in this case, you go from the problem, what they really care about, to the strategy, which is the business you're really in. And that's the different that you own. That's the different category ultimately you own, or the niche down category that you own. And that really creates a whole different and deeper relationship with your customer. And using that strategy, you then go to the top of your pyramid, which is to be and to market. So being, as you know, is the genuine way to market. You must be genuinely this strategy in every customer experience. It's not something you can fake. It's something that you genuinely must care about in relationship to your customer. And you market in every customer experience. The creative must be brilliant in every customer experience. And when that creative really goes to that next level, you have something that's so memorable that your customers will talk about it. Altogether, these three things, and you'll find triangles and pyramids that have 5, 6, 7 items. I'm boiling it down simple because it's more effective that way. And this really guides even me at a professional strategic level. So I hope it works for you as well. I know it will. That is it, the process pyramid. On my bookshelf are the reads that have helped me over my career. And what I did was is I picked out some that I think that would help you immediately. You don't have to be a strategist or a creative director. You just have to be somebody who cares about your business past the obvious to the non-obvious. Somebody who wants to know what your customers really care about so that you can discover the business that you're really in. So try these. They're fun reads. I wouldn't pick I wouldn't pick anything that would be a boring read. It would Any kind of boring marketing book tells me that that person who wrote it is just not going to be connecting with me or my customers. The first one is Delivering Happiness. I spoke about this prior. Tony Hsieh is the author, and he was the owner of Zappos that got purchased by Amazon. But Delivering Happiness is how Zappos came about, and it's quite remarkable, including that story that I related about how they hire their sales reps. And that's quite a story, right? The other is, and you've heard the expression play bigger, so that you can play bigger in a person's world, that dot that gets bigger that we showed. Play Bigger is by Kevin Maney and Christopher Lochhead. Definitely check this out. It's a great read. And the follow-up to Play Bigger is something called Niche Down. And it's just a series of small businesses mostly that niched down from whatever the category was in, whatever the category was, to niche down to this subcategory. And we talked about that as well with the Time Hotel, niching down to boutique, but then niching down even further to be not just the boutique hotel, but the boutique hotel that appealed to creative professionals. And that led to this non-obvious way of communicating. Next book is Audacious by Mark Schaefer. And this is a real page turner, real practical examples and thinking on how to look at your business and appeal quicker and more effectively to your customers. A classic is Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And I won't reveal why it's called Purple Cow. Have fun discovering that. You'll never forget it. I'm also putting in Ann Handley. Ann Handley's book, Everybody Writes, is about you and your team. Often in small business, it comes down to that proprietor who's doing the writing for a social post or a PR piece. an ad, whatever it is. So in this day and age, it's true. Everybody writes. You're looking online, you're looking at a post, not so fast because writing is somewhat of an art, but you can make it look more artful than, than artisan, if I might say it that way. Because if it looks too polished and too perfect, it doesn't come off natural. One of the things I've learned as a writer is to write in fragments and not worry about grammar, because the human brain takes things in fragments and chunks anyway. And uh, when you have a meter to the rhythm to the words on the page that is not consistent, it's broken up, short, long, long, short. That appeals to the brain more. It's why, for example, when you hear a horse, if you ever are in New York, for example, and you hear a horse and carriage that's riding in the street, and it's on cobblestone, especially, a horse's hoofbeats are inconsistent. The rhythm is irregular, and that captures the attention of your ear. If it were perfectly consistent, like a car, it's just the hum of another car, another motor going down the street. It's not attention getting. It's kind of annoying and or it just fades into everythingness and nothingness. So everybody writes, helps you to understand how to write in this new world of mostly social, right? You could also check out my own workshop course on LinkedIn or direct message me, and I'll tell you about that. It features the workshops that I give at Stern Business School at NYU and other universities. I do still do contracted jobs for companies around the world, um, and I do that sporadically, mostly just enjoying myself doing things like this for you, and uh, and having a good time in life, as I hope you are as well. Thanks for thanks for being with me today. Really enjoyed this.